I've used two monitors in the past 5 years, the LG 32-inch ultrafine display and the Apple Studio display. The LG display I absolutely loved. It was great value, had an awesome size, but it was really lacking in a lot of the convenient features. And the Apple Studio display was a hard pill to swallow price-wise, but has proven to be one of my favorite monitors due to its design, the panel quality, and the convenient features it delivers. Which brings me to a new monitor that I have here at the setup, and that is BenQ's new 32-inch monitor. It is the PD3225U display, and I find it brings some interesting blends of my old 32-inch LG display and the much more expensive Apple Studio display. And the best way I feel about this display, I can say, is that I definitely miss using a panel like this in a lot of ways, but not in all ways. And although BenQ's new designer monitor doesn't necessarily make me regret spending all that extra money on the Apple Studio display a year ago, that's not necessarily a bad thing, so let me explain. Starting off with a couple of the design elements of the monitor, I really like how the BenQ display has a stand that is not only metal, but it is in a space gray finish, which perfectly matches up with my MacBook Pro. Although I do find the base plate of the stand to be a little bit wide because it does kind of overextend on my oaky wood desk shelf. Also with the design, I absolutely love how thin the bezels are on this monitor with absolutely no branding throughout the entire front part of the display. It gives it a really nice, clean, incognito look. The only thing I don't like is the LED light that's in the bottom right hand corner, but you can turn that off in settings. One of the big things that I did miss about using on my Apple Studio display was having a giant 32-inch monitor. I used to have this on my older LG display, but this one just does it better. With the 27-inch size of the Studio display, I've definitely considered getting two monitors, but with this one big 32-inch panel, I definitely don't think I need a secondary monitor, and that's for sure. Editing in Resolve and especially color grading is really awesome to have that extra screen real estate, and I find myself switching and not changing to the full screen color grade mode in DaVinci Resolve and just keeping the panel up there in the corner in the view mode because the screen at 32 inches is plenty big. Now, one of my biggest gripes with my old LG display is the lack of convenient features. Now, what's great about the Apple Studio display is because it connects really well with a Mac computer, given it's made by Apple, you can do all these different things like brightness, volume control, and other nice to have features and convenient features for that matter. But that was something that the LG display did not have. But what's great about this new BenQ display is that those features are very accessible. It's the first time I've seen a good third-party monitor be able to utilize some of these features on the Mac through an app called Display Pilot 2, albeit it's not as efficient or clean, I guess, as actually being able to use it on the Mac. You can use the keyboards and function keys. However, I do find sometimes that when you do use the volume keys, for example, it does tend to lag behind or sometimes just not work. But it's good that those features are there. They work, I'd say, around about 80% of the time. I found that the color modes between and the actual out-of-the-box experience between the BenQ monitor and the MacBook that I have were really quite spot on. Looking at some projects that I've worked on in the past, everything seemed to match and have perfect continuity in terms of colors, and I haven't used a Focusrite or any other color matching tool. So I found that experience to be really, really pleasant. And what's great inside of the BenQ monitor is that they have a lot of great preset color modes. I switch between the MBook color mode, which is something that I like to use when I'm doing non-color intensive work and I want my display and content to kind of match what the color profile of the MacBook display is, as that's what that MBook color profile has been designed for according to BenQ. And if you do a lot of work in areas such as print photography and magazine work, there's also tons of modes that can help suit you as well. I really recommend checking out those modes on BenQ's sites. The black levels on the monitor also seem to work really, really great. I find that there's a lot less of those hazing and haloing effects that I have found in pure darkness on my Apple Studio display, but I have found that the contrast ratio on the BenQ being at 2000:1 versus 1000:1 on the Apple Studio display to definitely perform better. But albeit there is one little caveat with that, and that is that this monitor has a matte texture over the front of it, not a glossy glass panel like the Apple Studio display does. So this does impede a little bit on that contrast appearance when you are looking at the panel. Now, a couple of tidbits with the monitor that I didn't find as enjoyable. Number one, the monitor being 32 inches is wonderful. I love the extra screen size, but at 4K at 32 inches versus 5K at 27 inches on my Apple Studio display, the quality of the actual image itself I find to be far less. I mean, the amount of pixels per inches on the BenQ is far less. I also find that macOS scaling also has a noticeable drawback when using the monitor in 4K mode versus 5K, and that degradation is definitely apparent using text. No webcam as well on the BenQ monitor. It's a nice to have feature and probably not something that everyone would necessarily need. I mean, with the extra money you save on this panel versus getting the Apple Studio display and its potato quality webcam, you could get a pretty good webcam for that price difference and have a lot of money left over. Speaking of peripherals, I would say that the speakers on this monitor as well absolutely suck.
Boys, we've got a problem. We're leaving.
I would not use them for anything apart from just getting some macOS chimes and stuff through. If you are going to use this monitor, use it with headphones or get yourself some nice bookshelf speakers like these Kanto YU4 speakers that I have here on the desk. Another couple quick bugs that I found with the monitor is that when you were swiping between windows on macOS, I find that there was a little bit of a big black window that would just appear and then the UI would come back. I was able to repeat this pretty much every single time I use this monitor, including starting it up again. I think this may just have been a software error that could be fixed in the future. And lastly, like a lot of monitors, this one does wobble even when I am just typing normally. It wobbles a little bit more versus my studio display even at the lowest height. So that is just another thing to keep in mind. So in short, if you want a large scale monitor that has really good color accuracy for any type of work between photography, videography, and anything else that involves color work, I think this is a great panel as long as you can get around the fact that it doesn't scale as well in macOS, and if you position it at the right distance too. Now, I did compare it a lot to the Apple Studio display, but keep in mind that monitor itself is at base level $900 or at least Australian dollars more expensive than this monitor itself. So you could probably get two of these monitors and be under the price of one single Apple Studio display with the height adjustable stand. But if you are considering grabbing this monitor, I really recommend grabbing a really good webcam. You can get a great 4K webcam as well as some nice bookshelf speakers, and you'll still be under the price of the Apple Studio display with a larger display. So if those things are important to you, I think that's a great way you can bundle those together to get a nice little package. Anyway, that's been my thoughts on BenQ's new designer monitor, the PD3225U. If you have any questions at all, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. Have a great day, stay safe, and of course, do take care.